The Free Thinker Show. Ignite your mind, challenge the norm.
Okay, so get this.
Today's deep dive takes us into the world of Delta Force.
With Dale Comstock.
We're talking about that intense YouTube interview you shared.
What a one where he talks about everything from Grenada and Panama
to Somalia.
This guy has some stories, let me tell you.
It's one thing to read about this stuff.
But hearing Comstock talk about the emotional and ethical weight of his experiences...
That's what makes this interview so powerful.
Totally.
You can tell this isn't just some guy rehashing war stories.
Oh, what's up?
How about we start with his journey to Delta Force?
What struck you about his background?
Well, he didn't exactly grow up in a typical military family, did he?
Spending his first 20 years on bases in Germany.
Has got to shape your worldview.
It wasn't just a job for him.
It was his entire reality.
And then he almost didn't enlist.
He mentions feeling like he disappointed his dad by not going to college.
You can tell it was a tough decision.
But clearly,
Military was always calling to him.
he ends up joining the 82nd Airborne.
Proving himself in places like Grenada.
Before even thinking about Delta Force.
And speaking of Delta Force,
that selection process is the stuff of legend.
Comstock emphasizes it's not just about being physically tough.
Which he obviously was.
They put you through the ringer mentally and psychologically.
Weeding out even the toughest soldiers.
He kept mentioning this thinker-shooter concept.
I've heard that before in military circles.
But it always sounded a little mysterious.
What does it actually mean?
It's crucial for special forces.
They're not just looking for soldiers who can follow orders.
They need individuals who can think critically under unimaginable pressure.
We're talking split-second, life-or-death decisions.
With limited information.
They have to analyze, weigh the risks.
And act decisively.
That's the core of what makes Delta Force so effective.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's not just about brute force.
It's about strategy and adaptability.
He actually says something similar later on about interrogations.
How he believes you can be effective without resorting to brutality.
Exactly.
It's about psychology.
Understanding the person you're dealing with.
Finding that pressure point.
Comstock embodies that blend of mental sharpness and tactical expertise.
Which is probably why he was chosen for such high-stakes missions.
Okay.
Let's dive into some of those missions.
Grenada was his first real combat experience, right?
It sounds absolutely wild.
He describes it as surreal.
Imagine being a young soldier.
Dropped into the jungles of a foreign country.
Responsible for your own survival.
Talk about a baptism by fire.
He even got separated from his platoon at one point.
Ending up alone in the jungle.
Eventually bumps into his sergeant by pure chance.
It's like something out of a movie.
Only this is real life with real consequences.
It highlights the unpredictable nature of war.
Especially in those early days.
It's a far cry from the highly coordinated operations he'd be a part of later on with Delta.
Speaking of coordinated,
we have to talk about Operation Acid Gambit.
This was the raid on model prison to extract Kurt Hughes, right?
What was it like hearing him describe that mission?
It was incredible.
They knew they were walking into a nightmare.
A heavily armed prison.
But they still went in.
It speaks volumes about their training.
Their commitment to the mission.
And their dedication to bringing their people home.
No matter the cost.
The pressure must have been insane.
He talks about the helicopter landing under fire.
A constant gunfire.
The knowledge that their target,
Kurt Hughes,
was moments away from being executed if anything went wrong.
And amidst all that chaos,
he still had to make those split-second decisions we talked about.
He describes seeing a group of civilians,
women and children,
with an armed militia member among them.
He had a shot.
But he hesitated.
Because taking that shot could have meant killing innocent people.
Wow.
That really drives home the weight of the decisions these soldiers have to make.
Decisions most of us can't even fathom.
And those decisions stay with them long after the fighting is over.
Comstock says he still remembers that man's face.
The blue jeans.
The white Guayabera shirt.
The AK-47.
It's a haunting image.
A reminder of the lasting impact of those experiences.
It makes you realize that war isn't just about tactics and strategy.
It's about the human cost.
The moral dilemmas.
The burden of taking a life.
Even in the line of duty.
And that's something he grapples with even more as his story continues.
Especially when we get to his time in Somalia and Afghanistan.
And Somalia kind of ups the ante on the whole complexity thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
It sounds like a real turning point for him, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Somalia really forced a lot of people,
Comstock included,
to face the limitations of military intervention.
Especially in such a chaotic environment.
With the constantly shifting alliances.
Murky objectives.
Like he wasn't just fighting a war at that point.
He was caught in this whirlwind of political agendas.
And just human suffering on a massive scale.
He was actually there during Black Hawk Down, right?
He was.
Yeah.
He even knew one of the Medal of Honor recipients.
Gary Gordon.
He did.
And his account really personalizes that whole event.
You know, it's easy to kind of get caught up in the heroism of it all.
But Comstock reminds us that behind every medal,
Every act of valor.
there's a human being
With a family.
facing these just impossible choices.
It really drives home the human cost of war, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And how those costs aren't always acknowledged.
Let alone properly addressed.
Exactly.
And those costs become even more apparent when he talks about the withdrawal from Somalia.
Like he was ordered to leave?
Even though there were still missing soldiers.
You can hear the disillusionment in his voice when he describes that.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like the mission, the lives of his fellow soldiers.
They were just sidelined for political expediency.
Exactly.
And he even quotes his commanding officer at the time,
Colonel Garrison.
who said, and I'm paraphrasing here,
War is just politics by other means.
"Hmm,
It's a sobering thought.
it is,
It is.
that even in the heat of battle,
The bigger
it
picture.
is often driven by factors beyond the battlefield. And that seems to be a recurring theme for him, you know?
This clash between the realities on the ground
And the political machinations.
that are driving this whole machine.
It is.
It really is.
And this dissonance becomes even more pronounced when he talks about Afghanistan.
Particularly his Afghan interpreters.
Right.
The sense of betrayal he feels.
It's palpable.
It is.
Oh, it's real.
Like he really respected those men.
Trusted them with his life.
He did.
He talks about breaking the two-man rule.
Which is unheard of in that world.
Just to go on missions with them.
Wow.
Because he knew they were that good.
That loyal.
Yes.
He considered them family.
And to see them abandoned.
Left to the mercy of the Taliban.
It clearly haunts him to this day.
It's heartbreaking, really.
It speaks to the deep bonds,
Forged in combat.
the loyalty that transcends language and culture,
And then ultimately
the tragic consequences.
of political decisions made from afar.
It really makes you question the true cost of these conflicts, doesn't it? Not just in terms of lives lost,
But in the shattered trust, the broken promises.
left in their wake.
Absolutely.
It really makes you wonder, like, what we owe to those who risk their lives alongside our soldiers.
And how we can better honor their sacrifices.
I mean, it's a conversation I think we need to be having more often,
We do.
especially as we grapple with the legacy of these conflicts.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's easy to forget that behind the headlines.
And the political rhetoric,
Are real people
whose lives are changed forever
whose lives are changed forever by these experiences.
by these very experiences.
Yeah.
So, shifting gears a bit.
I was really fascinated by his work with canines.
It seems like a world away from Delta Force.
But you can tell he's just as passionate about it.
It's a testament to his character, wouldn't you say?
That even after everything he's seen,
Everything he's experienced.
he's still driven to make a difference.
Even if it's in a very different way.
Absolutely.
And what I found really intriguing
Is how he described the dog's sensory abilities.
he talked about them sensing frequencies.
Almost like they have a sixth sense.
Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
It went a little over my head, to be honest.
Sure.
He's essentially saying that dogs don't experience smell the way we do.
Think of it this way.
Imagine a dog's nose as the sophisticated antenna.
Picking up on this broader spectrum of information.
And our human noses can even comprehend.
Okay.
So it's not just about recognizing a familiar scent.
It's about detecting subtle variations in the molecular makeup of the air itself.
Exactly. I'm starting to get it.
So it's not just that they're smelling the explosive.
They're sensing something more fundamental.
Something deeper.
Exactly.
And this opens up this whole new world of possibilities.
We're talking about dogs detecting everything from explosives to viruses.
Even predicting seizures?
All based on these invisible signals.
No, we're only beginning to understand.
That's incredible.
So those stories about dogs finding their way home from hundreds of miles away,
maybe there's more to it than just a keen sense of smell, huh?
Comstock seems to think so.
He suggests that dogs are creating these, intricate olfactory maps in their minds.
Remembering scents and frequencies.
The way we remember landmarks.
It's like they're navigating a world that's invisible to us.
Experiencing reality on a whole other level.
It makes you wonder what else we're missing, doesn't it?
It really does.
If dogs can perceive the world this way.
I mean, what other secrets is nature hiding from us?
It's a humbling thought.
It is.
It really is.
And it makes Comstock's work even more fascinating.
He's not just training dogs.
He's tapping into this hidden world.
Unlocking potential that we didn't even know existed. We can't talk about Comstock without mentioning the whole extractions thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's like something out of a spy novel.
It really is.
Yeah.
And he's pretty quiet about the specifics, understandably.
Yeah.
But you definitely get a sense of the stakes.
Oh, for sure.
Working for individuals, governments, navigating all those legal gray areas.
Right.
Extracting people from places where the rules are, well, let's just say a little more flexible.
Yeah, you get a sense that not all of his clients were angels, right?
Right.
But he was often their only way out.
Absolutely.
It makes you think about those decisions,
Yeah, where do you draw the line?
Right.
When you're dealing with people in these situations.
Yeah.
Especially when there are some serious power dynamics at play.
Yeah. And those situations, they can escalate quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
And that story about Saudi Arabia,
Oh, my gosh.
even as a visitor,
Right.
really got to me.
It's intense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the constant surveillance.
The laws, that whole keychain incident.
Right, just a completely different world.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that what we might see as harmless here
Totally.
can have serious, serious consequences elsewhere.
Absolutely. It's a perfect example
Yeah.
of how cultural context shapes everything. Even our understanding of what's, what's acceptable,
Right.
what's normal.
Yeah.
And here's this tiny little keychain
Yeah.
causing such a stir.
Yeah.
It just shows the massive cultural divide he was navigating.
Makes you realize how quickly things can go sideways when you're traveling,
Oh, yeah.
especially in places with very different legal systems than our own.
For sure, be aware of your surroundings.
Right.
That's key.
Yeah.
And be ready for some serious misunderstandings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because those can happen.
So we've covered a lot with Dale Comstock today.
We have. He's quite a guy.
From the jungles of Grenada
Yeah, intense.
to this shadowy world of extractions.
It's a wild ride.
It really is.
Yeah.
What's your biggest takeaway from all this?
For me, it's that tension
Yeah.
between the individual and the system.
You have this incredibly capable guy in Comstock.
Right.
Moral, shaped by his experiences.
But he's constantly hitting up against these systems.
Right.
Military, political, cultural.
And those systems don't always play by the same rules as his morals.
Oh, good point.
And then there's that question he leaves us with
Oh, right.
about, utopia versus the reality of conflict.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is.
And honestly, I don't think there are any easy answers there.
No.
But it's something we got to ask ourselves.
We do.
How do we reconcile our values with these huge, complex systems we're a part of?
Exactly. How do we make choices that line up with our own moral compass
Right.
in a world that often seems to reward the exact opposite?
There's a lot to think about.
It is.
But honestly, awareness is a great first step.
100%.
Really understanding these
Right.
complexities.
The human cost of conflict.
And just being aware of the choices that are being made.
At every level.
Yeah, at every level.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe,
We can start having some more honest conversations
I hope so,
about how to make the world a little less,
mess up.
less messed up.
Fingers crossed.
Right. Well, on that note, I think I'm going to go see what's hanging on my keychain.
Good idea.
Just in case.
Yeah.
From Delta Force to Dog Whisperer.
Dale Comstock's story, I think, reminds us that there's always more to learn,
I agree.
more to question.
More to explore,
Always.
both within ourselves
And in the world all around us.